Hello, Jonathan. Welcome. Can you hear me okay?
Sounds great.
Jonathan, I just thought we'd set the scene, and if you could just give us a sense of the AppHarvest proposition. What's so unique about what you're doing? And then we'll dig a little bit more into what you've chosen to do.
Yeah, so AppHarvest is set out to build some of the world's largest controlled environment agriculture facilities. And we're building them here in the U.S. in the heart of Central Appalachia. And the region we're in was really known as coal country here in the U.S. So most of the coal mines in the U.S. really resided in eastern Kentucky up into West Virginia. Over the last 10 years, many to most of those mines have shut down. But we're in this region because there's already the infrastructure of roads and power lines. We have high-speed internet that we can bring in, and the access to markets. So we can get to about 3/4 of the U.S. market in a one-day drive from this area. So what we're doing and the way we're doing it is very important, but where we're doing it is equally as important, and that combination is what makes AppHarvest fairly unique at the moment.
Talk us through what you're doing, because I suppose many of us have got an image in our mind. I suppose two models, which is one, the kind of greenhouse model on one side, and then you've got another model, which is the kind of, we've seen this newer model of vertical farming. You're seeing that emerge even in the supermarket. People are beginning to put kind of, vertical sections in supermarkets. Where are you in that divide? Talk us through this controlled environment model.
Yeah, so my background was building large-scale solar. So I was a part of building some of the largest solar projects in the U.S. Before founding AppHarvest. And we've tried to say that this is really the third wave of sustainable infrastructure. 20 years ago in the U.S., it was renewable energy. 10 years ago, it was electric vehicles. And right now, it's controlled environment agriculture. And what's unique? Big picture first is the thesis is that most fruit and vegetable production around the world will at scale come indoors. With climate disruption, with a pressing need to be water efficient and land efficient, we have to use technology, we have to use infrastructure, and we have to grow in a controlled environment. So what makes us different than some of the other models? One is scale. So we're building really big. Our first facility was almost 3 million square feet. We have 2 other facilities under construction. And to put that in comparison, I believe that first facility is almost twice as big as Amazon's currently largest distribution center.
Wow, that's big.
So it's large. But we elected to use a glass structure. And again, my background was in energy. So I'm looking at what's the most efficient and effective way to grow a fruit and vegetable, which is ultimately just energy for the human body. And with the glass structure, you can capture the sunlight first, then only add the LED, the micromole light that you need that the sun's not providing. In addition, we collect all of our rainwater. So here in Central Appalachia, a lot of the U.S. is getting drier. So look at California drying up, the Southwest of the U.S. drying up. 5 of our wettest years on state record have been in the last 25 years. In the last several years, we've had record rainfalls. So we're able to capture all that rain on our roof, put it in a retention pond, collect it for several months, and then we have several months of fresh water supply. So what makes us unique is 1, scale. 2, I believe we're the only facility of this size to run completely on recycled rainwater, which means we don't pull any water from the city, but we also don't have any agricultural runoff. So rainwater has no sodium. All water from the ground, whether it's groundwater, city water, has sodium. That sodium builds up in the growing system, in the hydroponics, and you have to flush it. So we not only run completely on recycled rainwater, we have a closed loop system. Because our rainwater has no sodium, we have no agricultural runoff that we have to flush out. So there's a lot of different reasons on the inside that are fairly similar. And I'm a huge fan. I try to say no one in this industry to me is a competitor. Our competitors are dirty agriculture producers growing with harsh chemicals and atrocious labor practices that frankly have no place in society going forward as we rebuild agriculture. I look at everybody else as a colleague. So, what we're doing to control the environment is the same others are doing, which is industrial sensors, software, using lighting and humidity controls to control that environment. Ultimately, we're trying to optimize for the plant. We want to give that, tomato plant or cucumber plant or leafy green the exact climate it needs year round so it can optimize and grow. So we're able to do that in a natural environment where we still use bees to pollinate and we still use fresh rainwater, but we also have the technology around us to control the environment.
I just want to think a bit more on that. It's very interesting. So are they all closed loops? So sounds like there's a closed loop on water. Is there a closed loop on, and it sounds like you don't have some of the normal kind of nutrient-rich runoffs that a lot of farms do. Is all your energy a closed loop, or do you have to bring in electricity? Obviously, you've got solar, but you have to bring in electricity as well. Is that a closed loop? How does that work?
Yeah, so for us, 95% of a fruit and vegetable is water. So to us, the most important thing long-term when we talk about resilient agriculture, sustainable agriculture, is growing with 90% less water, which we do, and then utilizing that water resource in a closed loop system. The energy, we're getting directly off the grid, and we're working with our local utility partners here, and we've tried to message, it's really similar to electric vehicles. We're going to have an energy demand. But we're moving under the assumption that the grid will continue to get clean over time and there'll be more renewable resources. We're working to work with our utilities to build solar that would supply our facilities. But we do not have a microgrid on site. We don't have energy on site. It's off the grid. And over the next decade, I would say controlled ag is in the same boat as electric vehicles, where the electric vehicle itself is only renewable, assuming the resource where they're getting the electricity is renewable. We're into the same boat where we're working with our utility to ensure that solar is built, but ultimately we're a consumer of electrons off the grid.
The only reason I mention that is because I was looking at a big UK project in East Anglia, and what they're using CHP to warm up. I mean, they're doing tomatoes, so it's a specific thing, but they've got big tomato greenhouses, and they're using the kind of heat transfer from actually, I think, a sewage plant actually, and they're using that to heat things up. Is that you're obviously thinking about solar next year? Is that kind of thing where you'd like to move the business for that energy input?
Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, there's CHP. There's absolutely. It's you because you can use the heat. You're right, and there's multiple forms that you can use CHP on site to not only create electricity but to create heat in the winter. And that's something we're certainly looking at. For us, we do think, the simplistic long-term solution is really, getting electrons off the grid and making sure that our grid has renewable resources. But, in more remote parts of the world, whether it be Africa or certain parts of India or even maybe China, you could build a microgrid. So again, I mean, pretty simple. Build the microgrid with battery storage and solar, and you can power all this. And that's why, we've had a lot of interest from different political parties here domestically, but also the UN Security Council came to Kentucky for our first time in our state history. And if you look at what we're doing, it meets so many of the sustainable development goals. And we've tried to say, people are asking, well, what's the IP? Our IP is really navigating the complex industry and pulling it together. It's kind of like clean energy 20 years ago. We went for this moonshot, and it was all these investments and a new idea that's going to just save the world of energy. And what we ended up getting to was actually we just need to build a lot of wind and solar. And it's about execution at scale. And that's what we've adopted, which is the execution at scale model, using proving cutting edge technologies that really aren't bleeding edge off the edge, and combining those into a system. But it solves for many of the global problems in agriculture that we see, and with microgrid and energy storage, you can do this in remote parts of the world and have food production online pretty quickly.
And what about price points? Let's go through some of the products that you're doing. So you've got a lot of greens in there. I'm guessing you've got fruit, berry kind of fruit. I don't know, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. And how do they compare with other price points that you're seeing in supermarkets? Are you a premium product? Are you competitive at scale? Gates, for instance, a classic example of blueberries. You may not have blueberries, but they usually tend to be imported, at least in Europe. They fly them in. Are you competitive? How does the price points work out for the various products?
Yeah, I mean, we backed into the pricing based on historical pricing over the last 5 years in the U.S., 5 to 10 years, and we've made it abundantly clear that we do not want to raise prices for the average American, and that was our target. So it's pretty simple. I mean, we could go to a grocery store, we could go to the large grocers, and we could look at the various products from berries to leafy greens to vine crops, and we knew what we had to back into. And that was ultimately my job on building. And how do we get there? And how are we able to compete is a couple reasons. One, if you look in the U.S., about 40% of fresh fruits and vegetables end up in a landfill. So what we grow, about half, call it 40%, ends up in a landfill. That's because it's coming out of Mexico and it's coming from California, both of which are trucking almost up to 2 weeks on a semi truck, 10 days to 2 weeks. And it's just, you've got your diesel cost, your trucking cost, your food waste cost. So how are we able to redo this at the same price? Well, one, scale. By building really big, unit economics keeps our steel price lower, our glass price lower, our operating costs lower. Also, where we're operating, so we run completely on recycled rainwater. We have no water cost. We have some of the lowest land costs in the U.S., and a living wage here that you can live in this region off a living wage at a much lower cost than what you could somewhere in California, where California's got energy prices 3 or 4 times that of what we have here. So you factor all that into a price per pound on a fruit and vegetable, and because of our distribution of being able to get to 70% in a one-day drive, we can compete with what's currently on the market. And for a grocer, it's a premium product. For a consumer, it's a premium product, but we have it around the same price. For a grocer, you have none of the food safety concerns with foodborne outbreak. You don't have to worry about labor practices and the atrocious labor practices we see in agriculture. You don't have the harsh chemical pesticides. You don't have climate disruption that disrupts supply. So this is, again, why our investors and early partners, we're just under this mindset that this is where agriculture is going. It's going to take time. Will it take 5, 10, 15, 20 years? We'll see. But, it's very similar to what renewable energy was 20 years ago. And over the next 20 years, our belief is we'll see tens of billions of dollars flood into the U.S. agriculture sector, rebuilding farming with technology.
Let me just ask you also about scale issue. You've obviously, I mean, it's a great kind of characterization, twice the size of the biggest Amazon depot. They're pretty big. Are you going to roll these out? Are you going to have multiple versions of these? Or is this just the one? You're just going to keep making this one bigger? What's the scale up plan?
We are isolating in this region for right now for the U.S. market. And we put in our SEC filings about 12 facilities over the next 5 years. So our goal is to just build rapidly. And these are really big. I mean, in the middle of a global pandemic, we had 600 semi trucks of materials go to a rural county in the mountains of Eastern Kentucky. So it's just a big infrastructure undertaking. And our job right now is to just try to stay up with the building process. And I do think, through COVID, proving that we could stay safe, but also stay on time, on budget, is what really got us the support we needed to ramp up from here and really come out of COVID, hopefully building at a much quicker pace.
I apologize if it's a stupid question, but when are you likely to be fully operational?
We're operational right now, and as of this week, we're in the largest grocers in the U.S. So Kroger, Walmart, Publix, Meijer, and we're on store shelves, I believe, as of yesterday or the day before this week.
Okay, fine. And then let's just talk a bit about you. You've chosen, AppHarvest came up on my radar when it was venture capital back, so I've sort of watched it for a while now. You chose to go into what I think is called a SPAC, Novus Capital. Just talk us through, and you're still, I don't want to use the word early stage because you're not, because you obviously are operational, you have got product, but you're still earlier stage compared to some of the big food giants. Let's put it that way around. But you chose to go down the SPAC route. Talk us through how that happened and what was the thinking there.
Yeah, so the concept there was we could have raised capital in a lot of different ways, and not all SPACs are equal. So one, we elected to go public, and we thought via SPAC made sense for us in a couple of reasons. But why go public now was we wanted the consumer to have full transparency. And if we're going to talk about bringing transparency to agriculture in the US, where frankly, there's gag laws in every state that prohibit journalists like you from even going on farms. So we want to flip that upside down and go, we want to be fully transparent with the consumer. And there's no better way to do that than to have the institutional rigor of being a publicly traded company. And then for the SPAC, we looked at different ways to do this, but ultimately we raised a vast majority of our capital in the pipe. So we still did a roadshow with private investors. Fidelity led the pipe. The SPAC was 100 million. We raised almost 400 million in the pipe, which combined for almost a total of 500 million in total proceeds. And for us, not all SPACs are equal. This team adds a lot of value to us. The SPAC team was a part of a lot of distribution in the wireless industry early on, so they understand logistics and building facilities. And it was something where we could, get additional talent and capital through the SPAC while also going public. So for us, it made the most sense. I can't speak for everybody, but why now is we really want to be fully transparent with the consumer, and no better way to do that than to be public.
And just on that question, the public question, are you marketing your product as AppHarvest? Is that your consumer-facing brand? And I suppose if it is, one of the questions I suppose is that building a consumer brand is an expensive business. Talk to the big brand companies; they're multi-billion-pound companies. Just talk us through that kind of consumer positioning piece. How are you doing that? You've built the infrastructure. Now you've got to get the consumers to you. What's your thinking there?
Well, we have Martha Stewart on our board in the U.S. I'm not sure there's a bigger name than Martha. She's been very active. That's great. That's great. We love her here. And she's been very active with us. She tasted our first tomatoes earlier this month, and we're all holding our breath. Does she like them? And got great reviews. And then David Lee, who is the CFO and COO at Impossible Foods, and has been at Del Monte, just joined us as our president. It's for us, it's going to be a long journey to build that consumer awareness. But we believe it starts with a good product. And right now, you've seen brands like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat that 5 years ago pretty much didn't exist. I mean, no one knew who they were. And now they're blockbuster names that I can go to a rural county in Kentucky, and at a fast food chain, people know what Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat is. So it's hard work, but we believe if we have a good product at a fair price, the consumers are craving something new in food and agriculture, and it's going to be our job to build that consumer awareness. But yeah, look for the hills. And you'll see it on our packaging. And ultimately, we want people to recognize. And that's the shame here in the U.S. that you go to a grocery store, 80-90% of what's there is junk food. I mean, look at, I call it the way I see it. I mean, Kraft, Heinz, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. I mean, this is stuff that we talk about heart disease, diabetes, and obesity being some of the top killers in the U.S. Well, these brands that dominate the grocery aisles are driving those three factors. So it's companies like us that have to figure out how to create consumer awareness and excitement around fruits and vegetables. And we got to push the junk off the aisle and get consumers excited about, good, tasty fruits and vegetables.
Just picking up on that theme before we wind up. In the UK, we've got a very big kind of organic fruit and veg industry growing quite fast. So first of all, are you organic? And secondly, quite a lot of the organic guys are doing straight to consumer distribution. Avon and Cole. There's a couple of these brands in the UK that are cutting out the supermarkets and going straight to consumer. That sounds like an interesting area for you. So, are you organic, and are you thinking of direct to consumer at some point?
Well, we're exploring all options, and obviously, grocers moving fast. And if anyone would have said, 20 years ago that Sears would be bankrupt today in retail, I'm not sure many people would have bought into that. So obviously, who knows what happens with direct to consumer and the way that affects big box stores, but we're monitoring it. But as far as organic, we could get the organic certification in the US, but we decided not to go that path. And the reason is we want to partner with organic farmers, and we want to make it abundantly clear, since we're going to be so large at scale, we don't want to push you off the store shelf. In the US, what we want to push off the store shelf is the 90% of pesticide-laden product that in the UK and Europe, you have much different standards. But here in the US, the USDA has said, they did a study on cherry tomatoes and found 80% had at least one harsh chemical pesticide. 20% had up to 5 harsh chemicals. And so for a mother or father putting food on the table for their kids, making a salad, you would think that's healthy until you find out, oh, by the way, you've got a lot of chemicals that have been dumped on your produce. So our job here is to really focus on the dirty aspects of agriculture, get that off the store shelf, and be a conventional product, really a premium quality. And that's what we're focusing on for the coming years here in the U.S.
I just want to finish off on I'd be interested in your views on some of the wider kind of food tech, ag tech scene. If I go down the list, you mentioned Impossible and beyond. What's your take on the plant-based protein? And there's another crowd saying cellular-based meat's coming. Secondly, what's your take on kind of next? Where do you think is the interesting ag tech apart from you? There's lots of interesting stuff going on around vertical farms, I mentioned, which I suppose is possibly a competitor to you, probably not, different markets. A lot of people talking about better data to the farmer. Other people talking about plant biotech, a very interesting area. Just looking at the wider food tech, ag tech scene, where do you think is, just as an expert, as somebody who watches it, where do you think is interesting?
I'm obviously very big on plants right now, the fruit and vegetable market over the decades to come. We have a long way to go. It's in the U.S. The CDC did a study recently, and 1 in 10 Americans eat enough fruits and vegetables. So to triple or quadruple the U.S. market means we need 3 or 4 in 10 Americans to eat enough fruits and vegetables. That's pretty startling. And so obviously anything working to solve that problem, which if you look at healthcare and healthcare costs ballooning in the U.S. and potentially bankrupt our federal government, if we don't make sure we're providing everybody with nutritious, healthy options, we're going to pay for it downstream one way or the other. So anything that can be a part of that solution. And then the plant-based alternative proteins, look at the UN. They've said we need 50 to 70% more food by 2050. They're predicting we would need up to 2 planet Earths to grow that food the way we're currently growing it. You look at the vast majority of living animals on planet Earth right now are here to feed humans. We've dominated the planet, and we don't have a lot more room to expand. We don't have a choice. We have got to figure out how to continue to create products that use far less land and far less water, and that can be technologies in a controlled environment setting. And what I would say to the other companies working to grow plants the way we do, I don't see anybody as a competitor. The problem's too big. It's the same way in automotive. You're not going to have one automotive company retool the entire automotives around the world. You're going to have 20, 30 companies doing it. You're not going to have one energy company powering the world, and you're not going to have one agriculture company feeding the world. I don't see anybody as a competitor. I see them as colleagues, and I'm cheering them on because we need innovation. We need technology in agriculture, and the private sector has got to lead, and we've got to have capital funneling in. And to me, I'm just excited by anything new I see, and I'm consumers of a lot of these different products, and hopefully together. I was on the phone actually with the chairman of Beyond Meat the other day, as they're a publicly traded company, just trying to get advice. And I just wanted to make it clear, like, I'm a huge fan of your product and we need you, like, collectively, and all these different companies out there. I look forward to seeing how agriculture can work together. I came from the wind and solar world, where the wind and solar industry worked together to unite and drive the renewable energy market. And it was incredibly helpful for every company at every stage. And we in agriculture have to figure out, how all the innovative companies are going to work together and rebuild our global food system, because we don't have a lot of time. I mean, the next 30 years, we have rising middle class, we have growing population. You have China and India that have 40% of the world's population with less than 10% of the world's fresh water. We've got to use technology at scale, and all these different companies and sectors that you're talking about personally excite me, and I think we're going to see a lot of different winners in a lot of different ways.
Actually, just a last question. You just mentioned the word China there. If I were to pick a destination where I think you should probably go, would it be China? Because as you just said, they've got some pretty severe environmental implications. Used to building at scale, bloody big market. Ever tempted to maybe expand out of the Appalachians and head to China?
Well, we're not, we know we're in the largest economy in the world and the largest agriculture economy in the world. And if we get it right here, we've had global interest. And if you look at the markets that need this type of solution, China, with almost 20% of the world's population and 5 or 6% of the world's fresh water. India, 20% of the world's population, 5% of the world's fresh water. The entire Middle East, who doesn't virtually grow any fruit and vegetable right now, all of it's imported. And then obviously Africa continues to have issues related to water and food. So, there's large parts of the world that need technology and infrastructure and farming. And hopefully we can be helpful on the global stage. But either way, it's just going to become an inevitable outcome as we all move forward. We have to use systems like this to grow food.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you.